What would you say are some of the issues that are going on in American schools right now?
Lack of security.
Not enough college readiness.
Lack of
Also,
counselors.
poor
The
mental
need
health
for
that
drug
is
trafficking
sent
in
better
school,
access
breaking
to
down
healthcare
Lack of
barriers,
teachers.
Lack of counselors.
more parents' awareness.
But why is it that? My point is that the ISD needs to fund schools more. Because without that, those students, without that education, they will get nowhere. We're going to stay here. And we're going to be talking about the same problems year after year.
For decades, minority students have not been given the same opportunities as their peers. There seems to be a pattern in U.S. educational institutions. Minorities are being pitted against the world. Students of color are having to fight 10 times harder than their counterparts for the same opportunities that they are just as equally, if not more, qualified for. The world has managed to completely shut out a large group of people and leave them one step behind. We must provide equal opportunity for every single one of our students.
So our first question is, 69 years after segregation ended, are our schools still segregated in any shape or form?
Yes, absolutely.
Are they still segregated? Absolutely.
Facing history and ourselves tells us that, unfortunately, by many measures, school segregation is on the rise in the United States.
So while segregation itself ended in law, the reality of our situations, when you look at our school demographics, socioeconomic, race, etc., our schools are still segregated by race and by socioeconomic status.
Honestly, even though I go to one of the largest schools in the district, more than half of my school is Hispanic or Black, but I feel like it's missing out on exposure of other people and cultures.
More than half of students are in districts considered racially concentrated. So, how do we solve this? Or more like, how have we been trying to solve this? 2 words: school integration.
I think morally, it's a moral imperative. I mean, we talk about what we say the American dream is, what American ideals are, but the only way we can do that is if we make sure that we intentionally give every single kid in our system access to equal opportunity. And the only way we get to equal opportunity is to equitably distribute resources to students who need it most, put more there to bring everyone to that level of equal opportunity to be able to go pursue the destiny they want to pursue.
A child doing well, and it can't just be evaluated by some standardized test.
For decades, students have been forced to go head-to-head in a battle that supposedly determines who is smarter. There is no argument that students from lower-income houses are not performing as well as other students.
When we look back, the purpose of the SAT was the exclusion of Jewish and Black students from attaining a higher education. And even though the test has evolved since then, we can still see the systematic bias against minorities. Reports from the 2018 SAT show that 59% of white students and 75% of Asian students achieved their benchmark score, as compared to 21% of Black students and 31% of Latinx students.
And I think that it has to be something more than just a standardized test to determine whether or not that child is actually learning.
How does it feel to know that if a college uses the SAT scores that you're already a step behind because you're Black?
What do you mean? It makes me mad because I have no fair, there's no fair game. I don't have any type of advantage, and it's why am I doing this in the first place? Because I play with a group of girls who are not like me. They aren't minorities, and they're good at lacrosse, and, they're white skin. It just sets me up for failure, and I don't like that at all.
The only way to fix this is by straying away from using standardized test scores for college admissions. Looking at big-name schools like the University of Chicago, New York University, George Washington University, and Wesleyan University, they are just a few examples of schools that have put test-optional policies in place.
So when it comes down to resources, do you think that we're distributing them evenly and appropriately?
Absolutely not. No, we do a really poor job of distributing resources.
Minority students are not getting an equal amount of resources as other schools in high-income neighborhoods or communities. There's a lack of resources such as courses, investments, and opportunities for minorities. As far as the 1950s, there has always been segregation in the educational system that involved minorities and majorities. This included the number of resources that both groups were given.
How many times have you walked into a classroom and felt as if you weren't prepared to learn, whether that is mentally, emotionally, or even not having the necessary supplies?
So usually teachers don't have the funds and school don't provide textbooks for kids anymore, I guess because there's too many. So a lot of the times they print out copies for us, but literally most of the time we can't even write in them. You have to do it on your own little piece of notebook paper, which never works out because you end up losing it. But anyway, you have these big packets you can't even write on, and they're usually not even printed correctly either. They're all blurry because the printers don't work or the printer's broken. So it's just, you never get anything at this point.
What resources do we need to provide our students with so that they'll have an equitable education?
Opportunity.
Teachers that are not certified teaching subjects that they don't even know.
If you're a teacher and you don't know what you're doing, how you expect me to do?
Educational institutions have an underlying problem of the segregation of students based on their economic status. The pervasive problem in admission offices is classism, not racism.
Yeah. Money follows the expectation, right? So you guys are expected to be cream of the crop. I need to make sure you stay cream of the crop because you make the district look good, right? Where does the money go? I'm going to spend money where money is going to make us more money.
Lower income students are continuously neglected and many are blind to this. But what about scholarships? Don't those level the playing field?
About some really exciting things that we're doing around like early college academies, P-Tech programs, and choice schools. And magnet schools like Irma Rangel were one of the first types of choice schools. In fact, magnet schools were created in Dallas by Dallas ISD. Skyline High School is the first magnet school as a way to combat segregation and desegregate schools. Magnet schools actually are slightly less segregated than our traditional neighborhood schools for a variety of reasons, but we still have a long way to go down that path. So the other thing that excites me is choice schools, for instance, which, like magnet schools, don't have an attendance boundary, but you also don't have to meet an academic requirement to go there. You don't have to do an application. You just put your name in. And we've got choice schools now that are intentionally what are called a 50-50 model, which the goal is to have 50% of students from low-income backgrounds and 50% of students from high-income backgrounds in the same school. Because there's a lot of research that shows where we desegregate socioeconomically, outcomes for all of the students at the school, regardless of their background, rise, and you have more desegregated schools.
This must end. Let us use our voice, not only as students, but as young, educated people, and take pride in who we are and where we come from. We must learn to tackle this discrimination the same way those before us did. We must continue to push against the daunting cycle of poverty. It all begins with our level of engagement. Do you know who is representing you? The first step is to voice your concerns on how this issue is being managed. In educational institutions throughout the nation, we've seen minorities suffer from the injustice of discrimination towards them. They have been constantly belittled by the educational system and laws in place. Although there has been progress made, there is still plenty to cover. However, by using one's voice to communicate the issue to districts or representatives around our area, we may further the progression we desperately need for the future of our America. We must provide equal opportunity for every single one of our students.
Our country can never be what it needs to be when young people like yourselves remain on the sidelines.